All right, buckle up because today we are taking a deep dive into Kristin Hannah's The Women.
Ooh, yes.
Yes.
I'm excited.
This is not your average book club chat.
No.
We are going way beyond the blurb today
Okay.
and really kind of dissecting
Yeah.
these excerpts that we pulled to really kind of get a sense of how Hannah portrays the Vietnam War,
Okay.
but particularly through a woman's eyes.
Right.
I feel like this is something that doesn't always get talked about.
Absolutely.
You know, we think about Vietnam War and, I think of a lot of the movies that we've all seen,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But
We don't often hear those stories.
we don't hear the women's stories.
Yes.
We hear about the women who stayed home
Right.
and waited.
Yeah.
But what about the women who are actually there?
Yeah.
So this is where I think Kristin Hannah's just incredible talent of taking these historical events and writing these emotionally resonant stories
Yes.
really shines.
Absolutely. And with the women, she really puts us right into the experience of Frances McGrath,
Go ahead.
this young nurse who's really driven by this incredibly personal quest to go to Vietnam. And that's to find her brother, Finley,
Okay.
who is MIA.
Oh, wow.
And so it's through her eyes
Yeah.
that we begin to understand the real impact of this conflict.
And talk about a reality check.
Yeah.
Because she goes in thinking, hospital ship.
Right.
I'm going to be far away from the action.
Right. Safe.
Hannah's like, nope.
Nope.
We are dropping you right into the thick of it.
Right into the 36 evac hospital.
The 36th evac hospital.
Yeah.
And one of the scenes that I thought was so jarring was when she talks about seeing the blood on her roommate's bra.
Oh, yeah.
And she was like, what is that?
Right.
Can you imagine having that be your introduction to the reality of war?
It's such a stark contrast to what she's expecting.
Right.
Going in thinking that it's going to be, somewhat removed.
Right.
And then being confronted with these really visceral
Sure.
reminders of the violence that's all around.
Yeah.
That was a really powerful way, I thought, for Hannah to kind of set the scene and introduce us to that sensory overload
Yeah.
of war, the constant threat, the heat, just the sheer volume of suffering that these characters are dealing with.
It's not just bandages and medicine.
No, it's about the emotional and psychological burden
Yes.
of being constantly surrounded by trauma.
Yes. And I feel like the hospital itself almost becomes a character
Yes, absolutely.
in the story.
It really has.
And speaking of characters,
Yeah.
I have to say,
Yeah.
Ethel and Barb really jumped out at me.
Yes.
I mean, Ethel, the firecracker,
Yes.
and Barb, the quiet strength,
Yeah.
they just felt so real to me.
Yes.
And such great representations of, I think,
Yeah.
all of the women who served.
Absolutely. And they become such important figures in Frances's life as well.
Right.
Guiding her through the day-to-day realities of working in the hospital.
Yes.
But also kind of offering their own very different perspectives
Yes.
on love and loss and duty
Absolutely.
and how to navigate this really intense environment.
And speaking of love,
Oh, yes.
let's talk about Jamie for a second.
Okay.
The married surgeon
Right.
that she develops a relationship with.
Right. This is where things get complicated.
This is not just a simple, we're thrown together wartime romance.
No.
It is so much deeper than that.
Yeah.
And I think Hannah does such a good job of exploring this idea of how do you even
Yeah.
begin to navigate connection
Yeah.
when you are
With death all around you.
surrounded by death.
Yeah.
I mean, every day.
Absolutely. And I think Ethel's warning to Frances
What?
about, being careful
Yes.
really highlights that it's like this ethical minefield
Exactly.
when you're in such extreme circumstances.
Yes.
And it's also this interesting reminder that even in war,
Yes.
life goes on.
Right.
Love, in a way, goes on. But it's with a whole other set of rules.
Yes.
And a whole other set of stakes.
It makes you really think about, just how resilient
Yeah.
the human spirit is.
Absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
even in the midst of this chaos,
Mm-hmm.
we still crave that connection.
Of course we do.
We still crave that.
Yeah. It's a very human need that doesn't just disappear.
Exactly.
Because there's a war going on.
Exactly. And as if things couldn't get any worse for her,
Right.
she gets transferred
Yeah.
to the 71st evac in Pleiku.
Yes. Which is...
It's a whole other level.
Yeah, talk about a turning point in the story. Absolutely. It's like Hannah literally picks her up and drops her
Yeah.
right into the heart of the war.
Right into the heart of it.
Yeah.
Where the fighting's even more intense.
Yeah.
And I think that's where Hannah's use of setting is just
Yes.
so masterful.
Because the way she describes Pleiku, yes, the dense jungle, the constant threat of enemy attack,
Yeah.
like the setting itself
Yes.
becomes a reflection of the escalation of the war.
Exactly.
It's no longer about just treating the wounded.
Right.
It's about surviving
Yeah.
in this incredibly hostile and unpredictable environment.
And you really feel that shift
Oh, absolutely.
in tone
Yeah.
in the story
Yeah.
when she goes to Pleiku.
Yeah, it just gets so much more intense.
I mean, one scene that I just kept thinking about
Okay.
was when she's treating
Yep.
Private Albert Brown,
Oh, yes.
the soldier who's been injured by friendly fire.
Right.
And she makes him this promise
Yeah.
that she'll write to his mother.
Yeah.
And then, of course,
We know what happens.
yeah, she goes to find him later.
Yeah, and he's in the morgue overflow.
It's just heartbreaking.
It's just heartbreaking. And I think for me,
Yeah.
that entire scene
Yeah.
really captures this cyclical nature of war.
Yes.
This constant back and forth between hope and despair.
Yes.
And the fact that she makes this promise
right.
to this young man,
Yeah.
knowing that she might not be able to keep it.
Right.
It's
like a microcosm of
Yeah.
all of the promises that are
exactly
both made and broken
Yeah.
during wartime.
Absolutely. And it makes you question,
Yeah.
what does it even mean to be a hero
Yeah.
in the face of such overwhelming loss?
Right.
When you're surrounded by so much death.
It's like, how do you even begin to process that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And on top of that,
On top of all of that,
yeah,
we have the bombing of the Vietnamese village,
right.
which is just this
This stark reminder.
stark reminder
Yeah.
of the indiscriminate nature of war.
The true cost of war.
And it's something that I feel like
Yeah.
Hannah does not shy away from
No.
at all.
She doesn't let us look away from
Right.
the fact that war impacts everyone.
Yes.
Soldiers,
It doesn't discriminate.
civilians,
Yeah.
men, women, children. It doesn't matter.
It's that image
Yeah.
of the little girl burned by napalm,
Oh, gosh.
clinging to her dead mother.
It's just heartbreaking.
It's just one of those things that you read and
Ah.
it's seared into your brain.
It's seared into your memory,
Yeah.
and it's a deliberate choice on Hannah's part to confront us with these really, really difficult realities.
Yeah.
She's not shying away from the true cost of war,
Yeah.
both physically and emotionally.
Yeah.
And it forces us to confront this uncomfortable truth
Hmm.
that there are no clean victories in war.
Right.
There are only varying degrees of loss.
And yet,
Yeah.
amidst all of that darkness and all of that loss,
Yeah.
Frances meets Rye, this
Yes.
Navy pilot,
Yeah.
when she's on R&R in Saigon.
A little bit of light.
A little glimmer of romance
Yeah.
in this.
In this really dark and
Yeah.
chaotic world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even then, you can tell that
Mhm.
Hannah's kind of setting us up for
Yeah.
something
There's a sense of foreboding.
because he disappears
He
from
does.
her life.
Without a trace.
It's like he was never even there.
It's like a ghost story almost.
And then on top of that,
As if she hasn't been through enough.
she gets this letter
I know that letter from her mother.
from her mother
This is heartbreaking.
talking about how the anti-war sentiment
Yes.
is growing back home.
It's such a stark illustration.
It's like a slap in the face.
It really is.
You know, she's over there
It's risking her life.
risking her life,
Yeah.
seeing these unimaginable things. And then to have her mother
Yeah.
write about these protests.
And be like, oh yeah, we had dinner
Yeah.
and we talked about if the war was really worth it.
I know, like it's just a conversation
It's just a conversation.
that they're having
Yeah.
over dinner.
Right.
It's just this huge disconnect
Yes.
between what Frances is experiencing.
And what people back home
Yeah.
can even comprehend.
It just emphasizes that isolation
Absolutely.
that she must be feeling.
And it feeds into her disillusionment.
Yeah.
You know, she's starting to question everything.
Yeah.
Why am I here?
Right.
What am I doing?
What is the point?
Yeah, does any of this even matter?
Exactly.
And it's just this heavy weight
Yeah.
that she carries with her.
It's like she's trapped
Yeah,
between these two worlds.
absolutely.
You know, the one that she left behind
Hmm.
and the one that she can't seem to escape.
Right.
Yeah.
And she doesn't know how to reconcile those two things.
And then she finally gets to come home.
You'd think that would be the good part, right? The relief.
You'd think it would be like this huge weight lifted.
It's
But from the excerpts, it sounds like she just traded one jungle for another.
Yeah.
But this one is just emotional.
It's that feeling of not belonging anywhere.
Yes.
You know, like you're caught between two worlds
Yes.
and you don't have a home in either one.
And it makes me think about what it must have been like for so many veterans
Yes.
Actually,
Back.
from Vietnam.
Yes.
Because you have this war that's so divisive.
Absolutely.
And you have so many people
It tore the country apart.
who are just
families.
done with it.
Yeah.
They don't want to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to hear about it.
Nope.
And, I mean, she even gets
And then you've got Frances.
spat on
I know.
by a protester.
Just awful.
Like, can you imagine coming home
After everything
after everything you've seen and done,
that you've been through
and that's how you're greeted?
by your own people. It's just
Sounds
heartbreaking.
Heartbreaking.
And it speaks to that larger
Yeah.
societal attitude that existed at the time.
Towards Vietnam veterans.
Yeah.
Not just towards veterans in general.
But towards women veterans
Oh, yeah.
specifically.
This expectation
Yeah.
that they were supposed to be delicate and nurturing and untouched by war.
Like they weren't even there.
Exactly. Like their service didn't matter.
It's almost like they were expected to just
Yeah.
come back and pretend like
Like-
nothing happened.
Exactly.
But Hannah's showing us that these women were not
They were not victims.
victims
They were active participants.
who demonstrated incredible strength and resilience
Yeah.
in the face of unimaginable circumstances.
And even Frances's own family
Right.
doesn't know what to do with her.
No.
You know, her dad just shuts down
It's like they don't have the language
when she tries to talk about it.
to even talk about it.
And her mom just wants her to get married
Yeah.
and have babies.
Right.
Like that's the answer.
Like that's going to fix everything.
As if those 2 years of her life just
Exactly.
didn't happen.
It's like they're trying to erase
Yeah.
those 2 years.
It's no wonder she turns to alcohol
Yeah.
and pills
It's a way to numb the pain,
to just kind of
to block out the memories,
make it all go away.
the guilt, the trauma.
But I think Hannah does such a good job of portraying what we now know as PTSD
Absolutely.
in a way that doesn't feel
It's not just a plot device.
exploitative or gratuitous.
It's raw.
Yeah.
It's messy.
It just feels very real.
It's the reality.
And for Frances, it almost
I know.
costs her everything.
Mm.
You know, she loses her job.
Yeah.
She pushes away the people who care about her.
She tries to take her own life.
And yet that's the thing about hitting rock bottom sometimes.
Sometimes you have to hit rock bottom
Right.
to find the strength to climb back up.
And it's in that darkness
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
she finally reaches out
Yes.
for help.
She finds her voice again.
And she finds it
Yeah.
through therapy,
Mm-hmm.
through connecting with other veterans.
People who understand.
And she realizes
Yeah.
she's not alone.
And that's such an important message.
And then out of that
Mm-hmm.
comes this
Mm-hmm.
beautiful idea,
Yeah.
the Last Best Place Ranch,
The Last Best Place Ranch.
a sanctuary for women veterans.
A place where they can heal,
Yes,
where they can reconnect
where they can just be.
and find their purpose, their
Yes.
strength.
And that final scene
Oh,
at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial
I know.
in Washington, D.C.
So powerful.
Frances standing there
Yeah.
at the wall,
Surrounded by thousands of other veterans.
surrounded by
She's
it's just
like,
that sense
Look
of
at these other people.
shared grief.
Shared grief,
Grief.
acknowledgement.
It just gives me chills.
And it's not just for herself.
Right?
She's there for all the women
She's there for all of the women
who served,
whose stories haven't been told.
who sacrificed.
And it's like she finally,
She finds peace.
the sense of peace,
Belonging.
belonging. It's just such a
It's a powerful
powerful closure.
moment.
Yeah.
So if you take away anything from the women,
Mm,
I hope it's that
yeah,
heroism comes in many forms
it does.
and healing
Absolutely.
is a journey,
It's not a destination.
not a destination.
And sometimes it's messy.
And that even in the darkest of times,
Yeah.
the human spirit
Hmm.
can find a way
To rise above.
to find strength.
So as you delve into the pages of the women, think about this. How do we honor the sacrifices of all veterans, not just with statues and speeches, but with understanding and support? Because their stories deserve to be heard, valued, and never forgotten.
Listen to more interesting podcasts on Planeta Libra